Okay, so tonight is Wednesday, October 11th, and this is EDTC300. And so tonight, Alec is going to speak to you a little bit about kind of the new reality that we live in terms of technology and the way technology has changed the way we communicate and relate with each other. And Alec is, if you don't know him, he is a professor in our faculty. And he's also considered one of the really important people in the field of online, or sorry, like, I don't know, distance learning, ed tech, educational technology, and I'm losing my words, but things where people are connecting to each other online and learning. So I'm just going to stop talking now because that's not working for me so well. And I'm going to turn things over to Alec. But if you have questions, feel free to put them in chat and I'll make sure that he sees them and all of that good stuff. All right.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for that kind of intro. It's good to see everyone today. I normally teach a class like this, the undergrad class, but this year I'm not. So you get the excellent and youthful Katya, not the old guy here. So it's good that you're all that you're in good hands here. So it's good to see everybody, and hopefully you'll be interested in what I have to say tonight, and it'll be relevant to you. If you have any questions at all, feel free to throw them in the chat. Katya will nudge me, or you can just grab the mic. It's fine as well. So I hope you're doing well. I'm going to share the screen and see, hit the desktop. I think we're all good. All right. So I'm going to run a presentation here called Education is Selfie Generation, Power, Promise, and Pitfalls. And that's actually my daughter, my third child there. That was when Steve Jobs died a few years ago. I kind of made it as a tribute to him because Apple computer was kind of a big thing in my early days. But anyway, we'll get to the topic. Katya did a stellar job of introducing me, but I'm going to introduce myself a little bit too. This is me. This is my 4 kids. We like to do the selfie thing and connect, and I learn a heck of a lot from my kids in terms of where they are with technology and so on. Whether it's a little guy, this is actually, if you've never seen one of these things, it's a Sphero. Really easy to keep kids entertained with a little robot that you can basically run around. You can also do this with pets if you have any as well. They cats and dogs both like this. But if you haven't seen one of these things, it's kind of a robot that basically is powered by, well, you can run it on various apps and run it from your phone, which is really cool. You can code it. You can do a lot of different things as well. But it's fantastic as a kind of a glowing, fun toy for kids to be engaged with. And of course, as they get older, they can also code and so on. My next daughter here is Bia. So if you ever want to learn how to put on your makeup, she got a makeup tutorial at the age of 4 already. She was, or is it 6? I think it was 4. Several years ago. So she's doing pretty well. She's kind of an early starter as a vlogger, and she's got the vlogging thing quite down pat.
Could be a little bit hard, but not. Run.
Anyway, so you get the idea, but she's kind of right into it as well. So pretty good demonstration. If you're camera shy, you've got a little 4-year-old idol that can help you out as well. So my boy, the third one is a 7-year-old. In this particular one, he actually was really into something called Skylanders a few years ago, when that was a big thing. Basically, these little characters that allow you to basically, you put them on top of your game console and they kind of come alive on the screen, and then you have to collect them to play with them. It's pretty interesting concept. Sure ended up costing a lot of money. But what he did here is he discovered an app called Erasma, which is kind of a virtual reality app. And he had a Skylander poster And then he created videos for a number of these characters. So basically, when you hovered your phone over these videos, they would come to life. And so he actually had videos on how he described the sort of strengths and weaknesses of these guys. And it was pretty cool, and something that was totally unsolicited and kind of came out of the blue. So it was kind of a neat use of technology. And then my daughter is now 13, grade 8. She learns everything on YouTube. This is her, I think, 1 or 2 days after learning percussion. She basically went onto YouTube, and I told her, I showed her a few songs online, and she kind of shunned all the really easy ones. And then she picked up, again, this is like her second day, and she took on like a System of a Down's Toxicity, which I thought she did pretty well for her first time playing drums. She kind of loses control a little bit at the end, but it's kind of amazing. But a big part of this is really this idea of how kids are really taking technology in a lot of different ways. I thought it was really good. I mean, and I showed her a couple of videos and I thought this is great. But even learning some of the very basics, she found a video called a series called The Drum Professor online, and she just started picking it up and doing pretty well. And it's not an easy song to play for sure. And I used to play drums as a kid. Even the flans were a bit hard to even get, but she nailed them pretty good. All right, so what has changed? I mean, obviously, even looking at these examples, our childhood is a lot different than what we're seeing with kids these days. A quote that I really quite like is, technology is anything that wasn't around when you were born. And we don't think of the things like telephones and automobiles and highways even, modern drinking water or electricity as being technology. But of course, they at some point were these new innovations that came in. Pretty much everything around us is some form of technology. And I like this one because there's sort of an ageism around technology. This idea that we have these particular reactions to technology, and you might not get it because might be on the later stages of life here. But when you're born, anything that's in the world, when you're born, is normal and ordinary. So the electricity and that sort of thing. It just seems like it's just technology that's part of everything else. Later on in life, sort of this is kind of for many of you, this is sort of the time where you can really see technologies, make a career out of it. A lot of the things that you might see from the ages of 15 and 35 become really kind of interesting and things that you can actually take on in a greater way. But later on, it's sort of like there's this cutoff at some point, and maybe 35 is pretty arbitrary with this quote, but it's this idea that for older people, Snapchat just seems like it's just totally out there in terms of yeah, exactly. You only have a few more years. Snapchat or something like that just totally seems foreign to some people for sure. When I think about technology in my own life, and like I said, I'm an old guy here. Back the ball was kind of fun. I mean, it was kind of a cool toy. I didn't have to need some ball that was controlled by my iPhone. I was pretty content back in those days. And then in grade 8, I had like my first computer. It was this Apple IIc, it was actually a compact computer for those days, but it wasn't really compact at all. That was kind of a portable computer. If you grew up in the early technology days, you might have seen drill and practice things like Number Muncher and Carmen Sandiego and a lot of stuff. So that might be your only exposure to like educational stuff as well back then. This was pretty fun. I mean, it was drill and practice. Now, I mean, today you got mathletics and you got a bunch of other things that kind of essentially do the same thing, but they're a little bit sleeker and you have to compete with people. In the 90s, the World Wide Web came in, and I don't know how many of you remember this, but like even dialing into a modem, you're kind of the generation, many of you. There's always been technologies and there's always been internet, but there was a time where you had to dial in on your phone line to connect. And it sounded something like this. Oh, sorry, you got lost it here. Do it again. And it was a really ugly sound, and you kind of hated it, but you knew where you were on the internet, and if someone called, which is kind of funny, like I want to get on the internet, but my mom was waiting on an important call, so you couldn't connect. It would be like one phone line, and you couldn't actually use it for anything else but either the internet or the phone, which is like bizarre. Or even this one is, I want to call this girl from school, but I'm afraid her dad will answer the phone. Like the 90s memes are kind of funny, in a time that was so much more difficult for us in many ways. Like if some of you might be from rural backgrounds, and there was like party lines, like the whole community was on the phone. Like you basically had to share a phone with like people around you, which was kind of a bizarre concept. Like, could you imagine, having a community Snapchat account or something, which would kind of be bizarre. So it's kind of a different time. So if you think about it, we actually lost mediation from a house phone, like a central phone and then somewhere in the house where everyone can grab it, to mobile phones. From a shared computer where many people would go on it. Now we still have those, but generally we're moving towards personal devices. There used to be arcades and rinks, like roller rinks and that sort of thing, and malls. And now kids congregate more in virtual communities more than anything. Photo lab versus digital photography. And, we didn't, back in the day when you had to actually only use photo labs, for instance, there wasn't a problem with sexting that wasn't a problem with kids because, you didn't have access to, you have to basically develop your photos to a person in town, and they'd have to see everything that you actually brought to the photo place. There used to be like radios controlled by individuals or corporations, and now there's personal live streams. And of course, just the idea of time. It took a long time and a lot of deliberation and a lot of edits to actually get anything to a larger audience. Now, of course, there's instant sharing for anyone. And whether it's a 9-year-old kid or, Trump, you can basically take whatever is in your head and instantly broadcast to the rest of the world, which is a bit scary. And even, the idea of the telephone. The telephone is such an antiquated thing. And it's for most kids, it's only ever been like another app. It's not like a central way of communicating. It was just like, I've got Snapchat, I've got WhatsApp. Oh, I also have this phone thing that no one really uses for the most part. It's kind of different that way. So this idea of being born digital, I think, is important. And we have a real push to get kids online. This was actually something I saw a while ago, a hashtag that was called the Cheerio Challenge. And basically it was the parents vying to see how many Cheerios they could basically put on their sleeping babies' heads and then post it to Facebook. It was kind of fun looking. It was an interesting one. I swear some of them were cheating because even that one to the left, like there's no way that's like there's some messing with gravity here, or they're gluing.
Honey Nut Cheerios, and so they're kind of sticky.
Maybe, right? I don't know. Yeah, it could have been. Maybe Honey Nut Cheerios should have been exempt from this or something. We now know that about 92% of U.S. toddlers have a digital footprint. So basically, if you're basically in the process of being sort of in utero, you're basically going to probably have some sort of digital footprint. And about a third of kids have a digital footprint before they're even born. 59% of kids under the age of 10 have a social networking account. Typically, you get your first social networking account by about the age of 9. So, we have to think about, what should grade 3s and grade 4s know about social networking accounts? Like, what should they know about Instagram and Snapchat? Because that's roughly the age that kids get their first one now. And that same age, they're also taking their first steps to post something of themselves. This is also about the average age, or the average age that a kid will post something, a picture of themselves online about around the age of 9. That's kind of terrifying if you think about it. By the age of 5, sometimes whether it's iCloud or something related to cloud computing, there's about 1,000 images of a kid online. So it's kind of something. Stats from various places, like for instance, if you see at the bottom, I'll share these slides later, but you've got Know the Net below. There's a Salon article at 2016, but I'm happy to share the slides later. So thanks for asking. So there's a number of different places, and the stats are like anything. You can get stats that will look very differently from different sources of information, different demographics. But these are generally, well-established facts. And even if you did sort of a random survey of your Facebook friends who might have kids, just ask them, when did your, that'd be kind of a cool blog post, right? Even something related to like, when do you think is the right age to give a kid a phone? When do your kids have a phone, or whatever it might be? But it's really kind of an interesting time, and it seems to be getting lower and lower all the time. This one here, again, from the Connected Kids report, children age 5 to 16 spend an average of 6.5 hours a day in front of the screen, compared to back in the day, it was about 1995. And that was like 1995 was the birth of the internet. So it was really basically, that's a significant date because that's when the World Wide Web was really established. So, because of the internet and the World Wide Web, we've more than doubled the screen time. And of course, iPads and personal devices certainly look at that. Like back then, it was only the television, really. So overall, and if you look sort of the broad picture, when we think about the relevance to learning and society, I would suggest that there's 3 really big changes that we've seen. The first one is the changes in content. So the type of content, the abundance of content is really a big deal with this. You probably remember, Blockbuster, a few years back. I don't know how many years I think it was 2014, I want to say. Even earlier than that. I don't know, you can find it. There's actually still, what
was the last one?
No, there's still ones. It was supposed to be, so they went independent. So there's actually Blockbusters, a couple in Texas. There's one in Alaska. So if you do a Google Map search, you can actually find them. One of these days, I'm actually going to get to them. But they're not real Blockbusters. They've got all the same logos, but they're sort of independent Blockbusters. Kind of independent Blockbusters.
The little corner store around the corner from me still rents DVDs for $1 a day, which is kind of amazing. Interesting,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's still there, and there was something kind of a social, there's a social thing to do it. Basically, it was sort of a way to actually get together and choose a movie together. You don't do that and sit around and deliberate and what movie should we rent for $5.99. You just sort of watch the first 3 minutes and look at a Rotten Tomato review, and you're basically, you're watching something, or if you don't like it, you cut it off after a few minutes. And, Netflix basically costs for what 2 videos would have cost per month. But what I love about this is that Blockbusters are really a great and a useful metaphor for the way the world has changed very quickly. And I really love this video from The Onion.
A new tourist destination in Auburn Hills, Michigan, is showing visitors the difficulties life held for Americans in the past. Blockbuster Video aims to transport visitors to a time before the internet. This is an historically authentic recreation of a video store, a specialty shop where customers exchanged money for the short-term use of videos in an archaic system called renting.
The tour is amazing. It's like stepping into a time machine. It's hard to believe that people live this way.
A historical research team spent 3 years making sure every last detail was accurate, from the signs used to promote the store's merchandise to the costumes worn by the store's employees, historical performers who make history come alive for tour groups twice an hour.
My character is based on an actual Blockbuster employee named Jerome, who worked there from May of 1999 to June 2000. My main responsibilities are to man the cash register and to put the movies from the return slot back onto the shelves.
I am a Blockbuster customer named Kathy. 2 times a week, I travel 6 miles to rent and return videos. Oh, look, we're in the comedy section. What's so poignant about this time is the uncertainty. When you get to the Blockbuster, are they going to have your video? Did someone else rent it? Is there going to be a line? Are the alarms going to sound when you walk out the front door? It was very difficult for the people that lived during this era.
Actors say their job is to create a historically authentic experience.
Yes, we have it, but our only copy is currently checked out.
After the organized tour, visitors are allowed to move around the store, exploring the so-called living museum.
It's really amazing that people had to go through so much just to get a movie.
Blockbuster joins a growing number of historical tourism sites, including Buffalo, New York's recreation of Virgin Records Music Store and Iowa City's Borders Bookstore Museum.
So I really like that side, Dar, and it really kind of brings to light some of the changes we've seen. But if you think about it, our libraries locked in that same Blockbuster era are schools. You know, like we bus kids to school. They only have so many books. Everything's like there's, you know, when you run out of books, you run out of, you know, opportunities, and everything's really prescriptive. And so it's really interesting to see that like a lot of our education system is sort of locked into this old era of information, that there's a scarcity of knowledge, that there's only so many resources that we have to sort of, you know, come together face to face. I'm not saying that, you know, I mean, obviously, you know what online learning is now like, and I wouldn't necessarily want that for my kids' high school, although there are kids certainly throughout Saskatchewan, a growing number of kids who take nothing but online courses from even, there's kindergarten courses that are online. I don't know if I'd want that. But it's interesting. Times have changed in a big way. And a lot of this comes like with new sort of disruptive technologies. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but this was Napster. And Napster was, there's a number of those tools back then. It was Napster, Morpheus, Kazaa, like ShareBear or something like that. There's a bunch of different ones. LimeWire, Nutella. I mean, there's a lot of other ones that were really interesting. And really, there was a time where you could basically get and download anything. And of course, there's torrents now. So if it's not on, I mean, Game of Thrones is a good example. Like, if, you know, you're either going to watch it online or you're going to torrent it for the most part. And it's like we've just basically become a bunch of thieves for the most part. And it all started back then. But at the same time, I mean, piracy is an issue, although it's a manufactured word from what I would say, I think, to describe something else. They use a very derogatory term for something a bit different, but that's a whole different presentation. But I think it's an interesting idea that because of tools like Napster, it really changed the landscape of media downloading. Like before that, you had to buy an entire album. You couldn't just buy a song like from the iTunes store. It changed how cheap things are. You know, Spotify was a game changer. iTunes store was a game changer. But these things happened because of Napster and Nutella and torrents, because people got an appetite for whatever they wanted, and they wanted to get it the way they wanted it. It sounds like a Burger King thing. You know, my way, right away. And that really changed everything and really shifted the media landscape. So sometimes these things that are sort of illegal change things. And there's actually growing evidence that for instance, that torrenting, for instance, or illegal downloading doesn't actually affect big movies or, you know, in terms of the actual sales, because a lot of people who would, you know, either can't buy them or wouldn't buy them anyway. So it's not really affecting the bottom line in some cases. So there's been significant shifts. We've gone from atoms to bits, so the idea of, you know, physical things to electronic things. From the idea of scarcity to abundance. There's no, like, basically a digital copy. There's a limitless number of copies. From consuming to creating, even the idea of YouTube is a platform for people to be creators. From individuals to networks. So rather than having single people by themselves, we've developed into networks, and standardization or personalization. If you want to get something in a certain way, you'll get it that way, rather than sort of a standard right across, which really is kind of interesting, because curriculum itself is a standard. Like, it's basically, a curriculum is the best guess of what we think kids should learn, versus what a kid desires to learn, what a kid is passionate about, what allows for the adaptation to a world that is really changing quickly. Curriculum is just basically a pretty static thing, and it's just like, what do I think students will probably have to learn in 12 years? I mean, it's pretty bad in some way, if you really think of it, versus something that changes and is adaptive and flexible as well. Then, you know, you see a lot of free stuff. I mean, this also brought into things like, at MIT in 2001, they basically put all their courses out there for free online. There's this MOOC phenomena, massive open online courses, which I taught several. And these are like hundreds of thousands of people taking free courses. If you go to a site like Coursera, there's a lot of free courses from universities around there, and either they're free or really quite cheap. And then, of course, there's YouTube. Like, I'm assuming some of you learn things on YouTube. If you feel free, you just tell me what you learned on YouTube. Not related to your learning project, but what else have you learned from YouTube that you think is relevant? What kind of things are you learning on an everyday basis from YouTube? Feel free to chat on that. When I even type in the words how to learn too, you'll get like how to learn to dance, how to do the splits in one day, which is probably not something you want to do. How to fight, how to swim, how to do a split again. I don't know what that's all about. How to drive a car, how to play piano. So I'm looking at, I use YouTube for a lot for Bio 30 class, right? Like students are using this all the time, the crash course videos. There's the history videos. Like really a lot of the content that you will depend upon as a teacher doesn't come from the SAS curriculum resources. It's like a YouTube video, a TED Talk, some vlog or something from kid. There's tons of educational content there that are really important. Cool. Learning how to tie their own flies. Cool. Yeah, fly fishing. Very cool. That's awesome. So how to troubleshoot? Like there's technical stuff. There's stuff that outdoorsy stuff. Mechanical things that people learn all the time. One of my favorite is this kid. He's actually not just a learner, but he's also a creator. This is Jordan. He's actually from Brampton, Ontario. Oops, sorry.
I'm going to show you how to learn a hip-hop song in 30 seconds, and the first thing you're going to need is a beat. Now I'm going to need piano. Now I'm going to need strings. Now you need bass. Now you need to laugh about your problems. I wanted a cookie, but Mama said no. So I took it anyway, so that's how it goes. Now use it. Just use it. Got brownie for a week, candy cake. Now I got street cred, more than Drake. Now use it. Just use it.
So check him out, Brandon. 5-year-old. And what's interesting about that, and I actually also, I'm gonna show what my daughter did a couple of days ago. Because I'm on Facebook and Twitter, and I've got like a significant number of followers. I get companies give me stuff. So basically, this last week, Ford Canada gave me a Lincoln, like a car, to basically they just told me, here's a car for a week, and all you need to do is like blog about it or tweet about it. Everyone's, well, yeah, I'm not a big deal, but why is your internet so slow? I'm going to get to it in a second here. Actually, if I go to YouTube.com/Caruso, I should be able to get to it as well. So anyway, I don't know if you've seen the Matthew McConaughey Lincoln commercials where he's basically talking to himself. I thought basically my daughter said, hey, let's go drive the Lincoln and let's take some shots and we'll do like a parody. And so this is what my daughter, who's a 13-year-old, put together. And honestly, after the shots were shot, she did this in like 10 minutes.
Sometimes you gotta go back to actually move forward. And I don't mean going back to reminisce, chase ghosts. I mean going back to see where you came from, where you've been, how you got here, see where you're going. Now there are those that say you can't go back. Yes, you can. You just have to look in the right place.
Anyway, so that's a bit choppy, but anyway, you're going to get the idea. But anyway, really quickly be able to do that. What's interesting, they don't know when gives you cars to drive. I thought that was normal. This giving this idea, everything I learned in college can now be found for free on the internet. Now, of course, you're all paying for this course, which is ironic, but I'm just saying. Which is a bit ironic when you think about it. If there's so much free information, why do we have universities? That is Matthew McConaughey. See, there we go. Even this question, like if you can Google it, why teach it? Like this is something you're going to have to deal with as being a teacher in the classroom. Like why are you giving us stuff that I can just Google? Like my grade 5 kid has figured it out already. You know, basically all you do, you get a worksheet from your teacher, and you basically type in a couple of words from the worksheet and type in worksheet, and you can find the worksheet and the answer key online. So why even bother with doing the worksheet? Why assign those things? And I don't necessarily discourage my kids from doing that, because it's like, why are you giving my kids worksheets? Especially, you know, does the person need to do, like how, like I think a question you should ask, say if you're a math teacher, how many examples of doing, you know, how many actual examples of doing X skill or X formula does it take for you to actually learn the formula? Like, is there a point that 30 too much? Is 5 too much? Is 2 too much? Is 100 too much? What do you think, Katja?
I think it depends on the person.
Well, it may be, but at some point, then if it depends on the person, then we need differentiation of instruction, right?
Well, of course we do.
Sure, there we go. Which I think is really interesting when you start to think about it. But even this idea, like when you start teaching something and asking yourself in the back of your mind, like, can't my kid just Google this? Should I really teach it? Do I need to teach facts anymore? What facts do I need to teach? What does a kid need to know to learn more? So these are, I think, really important questions. You know, and of course, I can do a lot of this stuff just on, as Luke mentions. I mean, I could do all sorts of things just on something like Wolfram Alpha. I don't even, you know, we're getting it. We shape our tools, and then our tools shape us, which I think is really an important idea. That, you know, as we use these tools, they actually shape our reality, shape our society, shape our individuality. Even this is a sign that was used in I don't think this one was used in Germany, but basically it was to bring attention to people who are texting, because they may not be looking at in the Netherlands, that one. This is in Germany, this one. So this one in Germany, basically they decided as a city to put stoplights on the street as well. So basically texters didn't have to look up. So they could just look down and not get hit by a car, so you can see the stuff there. So it's like kind of adapting for the evolution of society. And of course, you know, we talk about technology augmenting our relationships, but also like detracting from our real person relationships. And I kind of love this picture where even the teacher in the background, if you can see her, is you know, is texting as well. And I hate seeing this sort of stuff where, you know, kind of the failed parenting sort of thing where you see these lifeless swings while there's a parent looking at their phone, engaged in something else. These kids, like, it just seems so incredibly neglected. Now, it's only a snapshot in time, but I worry about this sort of thing in a big way. And of course, there's, you know, the sort of the etiquette in our public spaces, like what is an expectation of how we should behave. And I think this is a really interesting, it's an interesting video that kind of gets to the sort of the heart of some of the etiquette problems of what's acceptable today. And these are generational divide in terms of what's acceptable.
And while they're, maybe they'll tweet us their fan photo, BB. Now's the time, fans. Get on the Twitter with a hashtag of the whole thing, AZDanaStrongFan. Then you might see your fan photo at a Diamondback TV broadcast brought to you by T-Mobile. I mean, look at the one on the right.
Do you have to make faces when you take selfies?
Wait, one more now.
Oh, there you go.
Better angle. Oh, check it. Did that come out okay?
That's the best one of the 300 pictures I've taken of myself today.
Every girl in the picture is locked into her phone.
Oh,
every single one is dialed in. Welcome to parenting in 2015. They're all just completely transfixed by the technology. David Peralta. Oh, hold on. I'd take a selfie with the hot dog. Selfie with the churro. Selfie just of a selfie.
I can't even get my phone to take pictures.
Took a picture of your thumb last week. That was good.
Here's my first bite of the churro. Here's my second bite of the churro.
You know, the beauty of baseball is you can sit next to your neighbor and have a conversation, or you can just completely ignore them. Peralta knocks it into center. David tonight 2 for 2, a leadoff single here in the 4th, and nobody noticed.
So, you know, even that idea, and as what Luke said, you know, the announcers are savage in the sense that they really kind of pick on these girls pretty hard. And it's kind of ironic because they actually also announced the social media contest to Snap or tweet or whatever it does. But of course, the girls are doing their own thing. But it's like, it's interesting because it's like these guys are basically saying this is how you should behave at a ball game. Whereas, I don't know, when I go to a ball game, I'm not necessarily on my phone. Sometimes I'm on my phone, but I'm probably not watching the game a lot of the time, especially baseball. For the most part, it's not as engaging, and I of course people do that, whether it's a Rider game or some other ones. Like, are you really these men are supposed to tell these girls how to react? So there's definitely a generational divide as well. Yeah, so you know, but there's a lot of different ways of looking at this as well. It's good. I think that is a good point, Shalene. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next one here. Even this, you know, we got here with a computer less powerful than your cell phone. And so a lot of people saying, you know, these phones that kids have are just a total waste. I mean, like, we have incredible technology in our hands. We use it for like the dumbest things. But, you know, there are some crazy technologies out there. Like, this is not as refined as it should be, but these things are getting better and better all the time. Like something like Skype Translator. I think the new iPhone is doing this.
The new Microsoft headphones.
Oh, Microsoft headphones.
Oh my God, that are supposed to be in the earbuds. So sorry, Google earbuds.
Yeah, the Google earbuds. Yeah.
Simultaneous.
And Microsoft
That's
never
crazy.
comes out with something good.
Sorry, you're right.
Right.
Touché.
Actually, although Microsoft owns Skype, but the moment, by the way, the moment that Microsoft purchased Skype, they created a backdoor for the NSA to Skype to actually watch conversations. So it's kind of crazy. So Skype basically became a surveillance tool very quickly. So yeah, there's Microsoft. But even this idea, like, I love things like Wolfram Alpha, which if you've taken math in school, you've probably found this already. And I mean, if you haven't, this changes your life. So something like Wolfram Alpha is great. You know, basically you can type in something. God, you're the big math person, so we're looking for something. Math. So for instance, if you just like step-by-step solutions, like, why do math anymore when you can pick, let's algebra.
Quadratic.
Where's a quadratic? I don't see a quadratic. There we go. No, there's no quadratic.
What?
Well, there might be, but
Linear. Then do the linear algebra. That's always good times.
Where's that?
Go down.
The law of cosine. That's something like. Where's the law of cosine, Luke? You see it?
That's Webster. Law of cosine.
Sorry, Webster. Yeah.
Crazy.
See if there's law. Well, maybe not. Anyway, I'll just click this one.
Oh, fun.
Okay, I don't see the. It's probably in there, but basically, you know, you get this, evaluate for, and you get basically it does all this stuff for you. But if you want to see the step-by-step solution, it's even there as well. So, like, basically, now it says unlock, so they might have changed it a little bit. So kids have to pay and stuff. Well, interesting. Or maybe you just need to sign in. That's interesting. But even like if I go here, that's a new thing because it used to show it. Even last week I looked. Even typing something like planes overhead, which is like my favorite search on this thing. It's amazing. Like right now, if I want to know what's over my head right now, a bunch of flights are over my head in Regina, and I can say, hey, I want to check out this Air Canada flight 185. What's up with that? Literally, what's up with that? Here we go. So it's en route to British Columbia from Toronto. So it's just kind of passing over us. We can see a bunch of real, data here. It says when it left. You can actually see the flight path. Then it gives you all sorts of like altitude and coordinates. And it even looks at, places where you can actually tell when it's had turbulence and stuff like that. Like, this is kind of amazing data that you can actually see. And so, like, the days of, like, if you're a math teacher and you're like, hey, Nicole left her house at 5:50 p.m. and she drove 10 kilometers, and met Pierre at another time, it's like you could still do those questions, but at the same time, why not like engage in real data that's happening right now, and how does that different? And I think that's a really important thing. Yeah, it's a really great tool for sure. And a lot of students will use this to kind of, cheat, or maybe not cheat, but innovate on their homework. And I love this. This is actually on Reddit. If someone from the 1950s suddenly appeared today, what would be the most difficult thing to explain to them about life today? I love this response. I have a device in my pocket that's capable of accessing the entirety of information known to man. I use it to look at pictures of cats and get into arguments with strangers. I mean, that's going to be sort of our legacy, this generation, that, we use this technology for, tweeting and stuff like that. So, like, when you change all this content, when you have access to any content, when you have access to incredible tools, it's also changing our relationships. It leads to that. So the way that we are much more open about our lives. This is actually a pregnancy announcement. If you can kind of tell, it's ice, baby.
It's shocking how many people do not.
I know. Well, I mean, it's an 80s reference, basically, or a 90s reference.
It's with older people who have no idea.
Yeah, I love it. Like, well, I guess, it's ice, baby. I think it's great. I mean, I think it's awesome. Or even how we grieve on social media. And I mean, I see every single day there's one of my people on Facebook, someone loses someone, and, there's the condolences and wishes and stuff. And it's, this happened to me in 2013. My father passed away. And just, I mean, I have a pretty big social Facebook presence as well, but just seeing the number of people that came from nowhere to kind of help and say, I'm sorry, or my condolences, like it was literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that came out. And that's kind of amazing. I actually took a screenshot years ago just to sort of see what that looked like. And then I mapped it because I'm totally geeky. But, thinking about like where people come from, like I'm from Humboldt, Saskatchewan. I didn't ever expect that if a parent of mine or someone I love died, there'd be people in all these places across the world helping me mourn. Like that's pretty powerful. I think that's really crazy that just anyone can have a really amazing network of people across of the planet that can help them learn. I'm big in the UK. Yeah, exactly. Help them mourn, but all, and some people probably, like, I'm not big in Africa. You can tell that.
You got somebody there, and
yeah, I don't even know where that is. We should get better at geography. Yeah, it is beautiful. Thank you, Emily. I think that's absolutely right. It is beautiful. And even things like this. Like I love videos where kind of people are having those magic moments. They used to be like quiet moments, but this is like a guy who just wants to marry someone, and he does it on YouTube instead of like in a quiet restaurant somewhere.
It's a beautiful day. Something to do. Hey baby, I think I wanna marry you. Is it the look in your eyes, or is it this dancing kiss? Who cares, baby? I think I wanna marry you. Little chapel on the boulevard, we can go.
You kind of get it's kind of amazing. You get like a bunch of people and they dance and sing, and it's like incredibly choreographed. And like what you're actually seeing here is like 31 million people are watching this video. And, it wasn't live or anything, but if you think about it, it even got like Skype people coming in. It's really elaborate. And then of course, he's like asks her, and she's not gonna say no. Like there's no way at this point, like there's 2 billion people there. Would that be? I know, but it would be more viral, I think, at that point. She's like, no, yeah, actually, no, this is like too over the top. I like my privacy. And like, so is that guy doing it for her, or is it like some YouTube fame? It's kind of an interesting conundrum, I think, that we value sort of the publicity in such a weird way. But I think certainly this intimacy is really something out there. And I love this image, all this technology is making us antisocial. But I mean, it's actually a trend. Technology, no one ever says, look at that kid all by himself you're reading a book by a tree. Like, no one says you are totally antisocial. They're like, look at that learned boy over there by the tree. It's like, it's a total, once it's technology, it's like this incredible bias that obviously your brain is being fried. And
I don't know. I find that sometimes people frown at introverts who just want to read a book at a party.
Well, it's at a party?
I mean, some of us don't like parties.
Confessions of Katya, hashtag anyone. Here we go.
What else would you do?
But even this, okay, anyone can identify this goal? I'm going to see it. Look at this, this family sitting in a living room, and they're watching a really special hockey game. Anyone? Any hockey fans? Anyone? Henderson, thank you. Jaden wins. So, the goal that sort of everyone remembers, even sort of immortalized by the HIP song, that there was a goal that everyone remembers. Speaking of the HIP, I happen to be able to be very fortunate to go to the final HIP concert in Kingston. And in a helicopter. Yeah, let's just go back to my Instagram. I'm gonna sound like I'm a total brat here. Where would that be? Let's see.
But I think we should all just remember they did not lend Alec a helicopter. It's a different
situation. Yeah, they didn't lend me a helicopter per se. Okay, I'm gonna look at where's my helicopter. Here we go. So I'm on this so this is me getting to the HIP, and so I have a friend here that's like an oil dude from high school. Anyway, so he just happened to rent this helicopter for $18,000, and it's the same one that Trump drives apparently, or flies a Kaspersky or something like that. Anyway, I don't know anything about helicopter. I didn't learn about that on YouTube. Then we just go and land. We landed by Justin Trudeau. Basically he paid to close or to get into the airport after hours. It was ridiculous. Anyway, exactly, Emily. Exactly, right? Emily nails it. Of course everyone does this. This is just regular everyday privilege. Here we go. All right, so it was kind of amazing, but not something I'll probably do in my life again. But what's amazing is you didn't have to rent a helicopter to get to this. You could watch it on your phone, right? You could, everyone, not everyone, but Canadians around the world were watching this really specialized, amazing event, commercial free, but people were also tweeting about it. It was kind of one of these really amazing moments that people sort of got together, and it was a really weird patriotism, not for everyone, absolutely, but for many people, there was a connection, I think, in many ways, to the HIP concert. I'm not sure how many of you watched it or connected, but and of course, it was a unifying thing that people didn't have to watch it just on a television. You were Facebooking it, you were Snapchatting it, you were on YouTube, Periscoping it. It was kind of an interesting time for sure. So if we think about it, what's really important, I think, for us all to think, and this kind of goes back to the modem, there was a time where basically there was a time where you could be online or offline. But it's for kids these days, it's impossible. Our student lives are a hybrid now of online versus offline. Always, they're always online in some way. And whether they're physically online, whether the phone's in their pocket, part of their life is playing out at that moment on Facebook. Part of their life, their reputation, things are happening about them in a number of different spaces. Whether they're they're active in those spaces or not, if they have a presence, they're in that space. We have to really consider this. Parts of their lives linger in these particular spaces. All right. The NSA definitely helps with that. For sure. I mean, Facebook is the biggest NSA experiment I've ever seen. It's amazing. So let's think about this. As teachers, we're headed into this, into the barrage of, different types of apps that we see with our kids. And we know the basic ones. We know that there's Facebook. None of the kids are actually on Facebook. They just kind of pretend to be there because it makes their parents happy. And then Twitter is not a big one for teens, but certainly Snapchat and Instagram certainly are. And I don't know what the first apps you have or how many you're on, but you're probably on at least one or more of these. I'd be surprised if one or more. Well, for this class, you're probably on Twitter. But I'm assuming most of you are on Facebook. You should be on Twitter. It's a great platform, and I would get behind that for sure. Snapchat, my daughter better send me a snap today or our streak is totally up. So I have to make sure that our streak continues. But Snapchat is interesting because it's really this ephemera. It's like it's a back to a time where people can actually have disappearing memories. I mean, things can be downloaded and that sort of thing and snapped and recorded, but it's a kind of a throwback, I guess. Back in the days when we forgot things, that things weren't on a permanent record all the time. And it's got an allure to it for sure. That's one of the reasons it's as popular. Plus the filters are pretty cool. Messaging tools, I mean, know these things. I don't know if there's anything that you use that's not here, but I mean, Line, big in Asia in particular. WhatsApp to the left, then there's Messenger in the middle, there's Kik, which kind of went out of favor a little bit in the last little while, and then there's even FaceTime. But of course, all the tools have some sort of instant messaging. Like on any given day, I'm emailing, I've got instant direct, Twitter direct messages, I've got Instagram direct messages, I've got Facebook direct messages, I've got Facebook page direct messages, and it's really hard to keep up with all this stuff, plus email, which is brutal. And then there's live streaming, and this is like becoming more and more concern in the classroom. Like I get called into schools quite often, or I get phone calls because principals are hearing about these new live streaming apps, and teachers are being implicated about what these particular tools because they're not really respecting privacy. We've seen suicides broadcast on things like Facebook Live, and then of course there's copycat suicides on things like Facebook Live. We've seen murders on Facebook Live. Now that doesn't mean that if you use Facebook Live you're going to murder someone, but you see these things and they become big concerns and they become sensationalized by the press and so on. Like this one is like total concern. I had a couple of calls in the last 6 months about this one's called Live.me. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's something similar called like there was that video one that the one that you could do lip dubs, not Dub Smash, but the other one. Was it Dub Smash? No, it was another one. Live. Anyway, I forgot. Musically, that's the one I'm thinking.
Wow.
Musically, and then there was like a live version. So this is the one that's like this is not as popular as it was like even 3 months ago, but to me it's like a scary metaphor for what the extremes of social media could be, if you think about it. So I'll try to maybe construct this for you, hopefully. It's scary app by itself, so I'm going to go and find on my phone. Where do I go? Social. And
I went on here for like 5 minutes, and it was super creepy.
Okay.
Creepy.
So here it is. Basically, it's an app where daily check-in. Oh, I forgot I'm using my phone. All right, and so what you see here, oh, great. So what you see here, these are all live streams of people. So these are all people, and if you look at them, the number at the top of each window is how many people are actually watching them. And so these are all people with a live feed of some sort. And so let's check out Taylor. I'm scared of the X in her name.
Don't
maybe not. Okay.
No.
But she's got the most people. And supposedly this is not supposed to be anything offensive.
Who's that down there?
Who's that? Where?
This one.
Yeah.
I'm Barbie.
Okay. I'm going to pick up one of these and here I want to sabotage, hopefully. Everyone close your eyes for a couple seconds just to make sure that this is okay. And then we're going to stricken this from the video. I'm going to try Taylor because you've got 16,000 viewers. And apparently this is not, it's not going to supposed to have bad things. Okay, so Taylor, where are you? Okay, she's cold. That's good. Well, yep. It's supposed to, like, you're supposed to be banned if something is bad out there. But okay, so she's basically talking about who knows what. If anyone can lip read, maybe you can find out what she's talking about. But there are literally 16,000 people watching this video. And what's interesting, if you see on the bottom right-hand corner, there's like a present. So you can actually give her presents, and basically that incentivizes her behavior. So I don't know what the behavior might be, but basically she's on here because she can take all the presents that she receives from strangers and then basically cashes them out. And so they make money. So it's basically an indirect way of actually giving her money. So you're giving money to a female for performing in a certain way. And of course you can do the same for men as well. So if you think about this, like this incentivized system, in some ways, social media, this is like the metaphor. Yeah, actual money. Like people make money off this for just sitting on a webcam and talking and stuff. So it's kind of crazy. And the other creepy thing is here. So if I want to, there's a record button. So I'm going to record it right now. So I'm pressing and holding. So right now I'm recording, what's her name again? Taylor X Nicole. And I'm recording it, and she doesn't know I'm recording her. But basically I've got a glimpse of her, and this is a video that I can instantly share with like people. So you can basically record her in the middle of whatever she's doing. And if she's doing something stupid, I can blackmail her basically, or, you know, share it with other people. Super creepy. Like this is like, if you're making a tool for predators, this is kind of like basically got all the, it's like, anyway, it's bad. It is, I don't know, like extort. I mean, if you think about it, Luke, if you look at the amount of Todd story, I mean, basically it was very similar to this. It was a young girl, a teenager, who basically was dared by one of the people watching her to lift up her shirt. Someone took a screenshot and basically extorted her for more photos and so on, until she was blackmailed with the photos, and she ultimately committed suicide. So there's really, I mean, this is sort of within the scope of something you could do within this, right? All right, so it's scary stuff, right? And I'll show that. So this is not a required app that you have to use in this class. As Katya mentioned, we don't need you to be sort of making money on screen here. Oh, I got to turn it off. The other thing is when I show it, like she lingers in the background. Okay, I've got to get rid of her. Okay, goodbye. All right, so that's, you know, a creepy app for sure. One of the many things that kids might bring in. And it's this bigger question too, right? When you start to think about incentivizing behavior, this is a big part of what social media does. You know, how do young people develop self-worth that extends beyond the realm of likes, views, and retweets? Like when you get that like on your video, and it might be of your appearance, it's something that actually there's a psychophysiological effect. Like it's like eating chocolate. There's actually, you get addicted to likes and faves, and you might know people who, you know, perform for others in many ways. Like their entire lives are performances, and that they live off some of these stuff, some of the attention that they get on social media. And this is not in any way healthy, and it's something that we have to be really concerned about with our kids. So do you want to stop there for a couple seconds and think about that, or you're good?
What would you like them to think about?
I don't know. Any comments or thoughts? Or, I mean, we're going to talk more about digital identity, but
comments about, I don't know, what's the sprawl of digitalness? Well,
what do you have to say about this? Well, you know, let's bring in your input. Do you have anything to add? Anyone else in chat, feel free.
I still find live.me to be one of the scariest ones.
Yeah, it's creepy, hey? Yeah. Creepy, super
especially
creepy.
Just from going on there for a couple of minutes and it being...
Yeah, Katya got like 100 followers right away. Yeah, you got hearts and stuff. It's really weird. It's a strange thing. I didn't go on there, so I'd probably look like a really odd person on there, but it was, it was interesting. Anyways, yeah, disappearing thoughts is a contemporary lecture is interesting. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the thing is, like, there was a time where, you know, our actions or whatever it could be could disappear. Like, it is absolutely a privilege to live in a world where some of our history can disappear in a much greater way versus being, you know, sent to everyone else. When people mess up, like even Dalhousie University, they paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to scrub bad press off the web when a bunch of their dentistry students said a lot of bad things online. So there's data scrubbing that's happening now, becoming a big business. These platforms really suffer from our inability to predict how people interact with them. Yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of, like, even Yik Yak and a lot of other things, a lot of things were shuttered, like, you know, shut down because the platform itself ended up being too controversial, or there's too much pushback and so on. Ask FM is a good example. Yeah, thanks, Webster. Yeah, where there was suicides on, you know, like when you create an anonymous messaging app, and I guess the new one right now is called Saraha. Basically, you could go on a site called Saraha, and it's from, I forget where exactly, Middle East somewhere. But it's basically, you could create a web URL and people can leave a comment for you. which is kind of an interesting thing out there. But there's a lot of interesting, scary stuff on Ask FM. So a lot of the stuff, as I've alluded to.
Well, I was just going to say, it's interesting though, because there are the positives, right? So there are positives as well especially in terms of like the power of live streaming apps to support protests and, and kind of like social justice causes that maybe wouldn't get airtime otherwise. So it's unfortunate that, I don't know, it's just an interesting balance to be able to use them, but also use them not in bad ways.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we'll head to at the end of this thing. I don't want to leave you with like social media bad, never use it, never use it with your kids. But we just have to have an eyes wide open reality. We have to really be thoughtful. Hey, what's this? Update, and there's these guys in a helicopter. Who are those guys? Oh, that's me. Right.
Do you see that Snapchat has anonymous messaging now?
Oh, I didn't know that. That's a great one. Snap Map is like the other thing. My daughter the other day, she's like 13, and she showed me how to turn it on, and then like a day later, she says, "Make sure you turn off your Snap Map when you're driving around, otherwise you'll get predators." I mean, this is my 13-year-old, which I thought was interesting. At least she's thinking that way, which is great. But yeah, Snap Map, basically, when you have your Snapchat open and you have Snap Map on, basically people can see where you are. So that's, it's a bit scary. All right. So digital identity is a big part of this. And I think one of the scariest things and best things about social media is that you can develop a digital identity. Pretty simple graphic here. This is one I show when I work with kids, that we know that today that anything you upload can be easily copied, instantly shared, easily edited, sort of remixed in some cases, and viewable by millions. And this is something that didn't happen years ago. Things used to be private by default and public with effort. That was your parents' generation. This generation is much more like public by default and private with effort. Even Facebook settings change from time to time so that they're more public, and they kind of push you because Facebook's business model is really about being public. They want more things public than anything. And so you see lots of examples. Now, Katya will get much more into digital identity, but probably one of the really big examples of digital identity gone bad is a girl by the name of Justine Seiko. Justine Seiko. My Apple Watch is trying to tell me to do things. But, Apple Watch. So Justine Seiko basically tweeted like the worst tweet ever. And she was in London Heathrow Airport, and she basically was going to Cape Town, South Africa, and she tweeted this, not cool. Then, of course, a hashtag emerged, and so many things wrong with that. You're absolutely right. Hashtag emerged. Has Justine landed yet? Because she was in flight. She didn't know all this was happening, but people basically saw the raw entertainment value of her tweets, and of course, a lot of people tried to get her fired and so on. And there was tweet after tweet. I mean, if you Google the hashtag, you can see lots of things as well. And even immobilize people. There was one guy tweeted, "Is there no one in Cape Town going to the airport to tweet her arrival? Come on, Twitter, I'd like pictures." And that kind of it encouraged someone to go to the airport, and that was the first picture of her landing. It's kind of creepy, right? No one knows who she is. John Ronson, who talked about this in a book and a TED Talk, he said Twitter took control of her life and dismantled it piece by piece. And you see that happen a lot, whether it's politicians or teenagers or aspiring professionals, whether it's recent case of a nurse in Saskatchewan. There are people who really get hammered for whatever they might have done online. And this idea, so you can become a viral meme. You could become the next Justin Bieber. His mother basically posted videos of him online. Scooter Braun and Usher decided to discover him, and then of course he's got a career. I mean, he's had an interesting past. Or you'd be David after the dentist, and you're just in the back of your dad's car from the dentist, all sort of messed up, and you go viral. Or you could do something totally on the opposite. So you can get a career, or you can be one of those child stars, or you can have a really negative perspective. So one of the things that we certainly look at, and what we're trying to help with you with this class, is developing a positive digital identity. This idea of like if you don't tell your story, more and more, like teachers, professors, sports, like things that you contribute every single day, you're building a digital footprint, whether you like it or not. It's everywhere, whether we're sort of living in a surveillance society. And so you can voluntarily tell your story, or you can sort of just basically let people tell your story with you. And I mean, there was a parody a couple days ago on Facebook that, there was a girl who basically was dating her dream guy, and then she said, like, so are you on Facebook? And he's like, no, I'm not on social media. And like, they just freaked out, like, you're not on Snapchat, you're not on Instagram. And I've heard that more and more from people, that if you can't check out, someone you're even, whether you're trying to hire them or try to date them, it kind of seems a bit odd that, you can't be creeped online. Like no one can find anything about you. You seem like the exception in some ways. So staying off social media, almost you become a pariah, I guess, in some ways. And so, developing blogs, as many of you are doing, is becoming, it's something important. So at the end of this class, there's a good chance that if we Google your names, the first thing that comes up is the thing that you control, rather than things that you don't control, which we think is obviously very possible. Probably, we've seen school districts do this. My brother in Parkland School Division, west of Edmonton, they did this from grade 1 through grade 12, and kids develop portfolios, first private and then eventually public, so that they can build their digital portfolio. Universities like the University of Mary Washington actually provide you with your own domain name. So really, there's a lot of incentive around kind of building a positive digital identity. Whether you're a grade 1 classroom, a great example of this is Kathy Cassidy in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, great teacher who works as young with 6-year-olds who get their kids to share artifacts online, but at the same time not compromising their privacy. Tweeting, Twitter accounts for classrooms, even the deliberation of Twitter accounts. Like this is basically a worksheet that helps kids suggest tweets for their teacher, and then the classroom can deliberate and say whether or not this is a good tweet to send. And that's, this is something Trump should have maybe. Like Trump should totally have a worksheet like this and a grade 1 teacher looking after him. And saying, okay, well, is this thoughtful? Is it kind? Is this something that's not going to lead us to World War III? Some of the basic criteria that you want to have in a tweet. And there's great examples of kids or principals, like academic leaders, school leaders who do this with their kids, who help them grow and be responsible online. And a guy by the name of Tony Sinanis is one of my favorite. Here he is.
Hi, my name is Tony Sinanis, and I'm the lead learner here at Canning Elementary School. And I'm with a bunch of our awesome 5th graders because we are here for our 2nd weekly update of the year. We're going to tell you about what's going on in every grade level from kindergarten to 5th grade. So the kids here with us today are from Mrs. Cypress' class. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
I'm Hunter. I'm Sophia. I'm Charlotte. I'm Jeannie. I'm Jack.
So Jack, Jeannie, Charlotte, and Sophia and Hunter are all here today because they're going to tell you a little bit about what's going on, starting with kindergarten. Hey, Charlotte, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in kindergarten?
The kinders are going book shopping for the first time. And they're also learning letters, sounds, and numbers 0 through 10.
Do you remember when you were in kindergarten, Charlotte?
No.
Oh, all right. Thanks for that update. Hey, Jack, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in 1st grade here at Canning Ed?
The 1st graders are writing about times in their lives when they were kids. And they're also adding numbers 1 through 10.
Jack, do you remember when you were in 1st grade?
Yeah.
Who was your teacher?
Miss Linder.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So, and I can see, like, I'm watching your faces, and you can see, like, there's something really powerful about having kids, use it in responsible ways. And I can tell you guys are going to be good teachers because you light up when you see kids that are happy and cared for and do those sort of things. So that's great. But Emily, nailed it when she said that you heard the term lead learner. And I think that's great. Even listening to the language, that's a bit different. And positioning yourself, and many admins do that, even teachers in the classroom, they're the lead learner. They're not necessarily a teacher. They're learning alongside their kids, and whether it's social media or whether it's the content of the course, that's how you often have to position yourself. And I think that's a really wonderful thing that, thinking about embracing some of the social media, it's not bad to make mistakes along the way. Just try not to endanger your kids, obviously. But I mean, this is a really good example, and Tony Sinanis is a good one. And then there's just information literacies. Now, Kathy is going to spend a lot of time on info literacy and fake news and that sort of thing. But there's at least one example to think about is even the photoshopping stuff and some of the fake stuff that you find on the internet. You're seeing more and more of it. Just recently, I'll talk more about this in a second, but if you think about the technologies of deception, like, Photoshop before there was Photoshop. This is a Mackenzie King, yeah, on the left-hand side. Then there's Queen Elizabeth, and then there's King George on the right-hand side, on the right photo. But Mackenzie King didn't really like being, sort of like outshone by another man there in the corner in there. So he actually got the king edited out. So sometimes, even back then, they were editing photos to make people look more powerful. Like propaganda has been big, and there's tons of examples of back then, and that was actually impressive edit back then. This is well before Photoshop, to do that sort of thing. But pictures matter in terms of whether it's you're using the really pretty Snapchat filter to make yourself blemish free, or you're doing something like this. It's all sorts of different levels of performance. Even the famous Mussolini photo of him, charging on this photo looks a lot different when you have a horse trainer in front of you who's basically kind of running the show there. So they kind of kindly edited her out to make him look more powerful and in command, versus having, in this particular case, it looks like a female even. I feel like it's just a guy wearing a funny hat. It's a guy with a hat, okay, but a horse trainer in some ways. So one of the other things that you see there, and there's a lot of people hit by this, is romance scams. And this is sort of the new thing for the last few years. In fact, my photos have been used as, bait, for the last 11 years or so, to attract a particular demographic of women into romance scams. So this was a CBC article on it. Now, explain how this works. So basically, my photos have been used. My photos are, everywhere on the web because I'm a fairly public person. And do a lot of speaking and that sort of thing when I'm not in my helicopter. And so examples, for instance, this is a fake Facebook profile that one of the that a victim sent to me after they were scammed. And so this is Alex Gallert, and this was also connected to a fake other profile. And this is actually photos of my daughter, who's not named Clara. But basically, this was connected to that. So and this is my mother, and this is like my mother, who's like a real photograph from my Instagram, where she was actually mourning over my dad's grave. So these are it's a network of Facebook accounts that were fake, and they're meant to deceive people. Yeah, it's very violating, incredibly violating. But even I'm on every dating network, but I'm not, right? Because I'm not. So for instance, I'm Raymond 25 Toronto. I got this account taken down. I love the profile because I suck at writing apparently. My profile said, I am good in talking with people. I am good in singing. I can play guitar. I can write poems. I seem like a great catch. What people notice about me, the way I dressed, my dressing, my style of dressing, it's a really weird English. Yeah. It's not English as a first language, certainly in this case. And this is like a worst Photoshop ever. It's like this ghost dog in my lap. You can sort of see my daughter used to be in my lap, but they edited her out and they put this ghost dog on because it didn't fit the narrative. I wasn't in an accident, but they Photoshopped me over something. I wasn't an oil guy up in the North Sea. That's why I was never available on the phone, because I was always busy working on oil rigs in the North Sea or whatever I was doing. Really long very long arms, and I'm much taller and skinnier. Yeah. I wasn't a general. They put, and I actually found this later with a Google search, this is the original guy. This is the real dude. Very different. And then there's fake passports that I've used. This one was found on a site called shadi.com, which is an Indian matrimonial site. And there's some telltale signs, the passport site isn't right, but the people still sent money. This one is another example, a younger version of me. I rarely wear a tie, so that's a giveaway if you know me. But also, if you look at the birth date, it's June 12th, 1971, but it doesn't match the birth date that you see that's embedded in the barcode below, or not the barcode, the number code. So there's certain things that if you really know how passports work, I gotta show you the new one, okay? Because I just got one from another victim. Like, not to, and this is the most hilarious one ever. It's on my Facebook, and like, it's a passport photo, but it's like the worst edit I've ever seen. And let's see if I can find it. Where are we? It's fairly recent. Where is it? Is it that far back?
Well, maybe you share too much.
I do share too much.
Further back.
Oh, it's further?
Yeah.
Okay. I do share too much, obviously. I've
There's
been on fire recently. Oh, here it is. Like, look at this guy. Like, I don't know what they did to me, but I look like a Kim Jong-il sort of going on like a compilation of something. Like, that's the worst photo ever, seriously. Have you ever played a game like where you have to guess? What's that game? With the,
Guess Who?
Guess Who? It kind of looks like a Guess Who character of some sort, where you basically guess who the person is. But it's hilarious. Yeah, like, and someone like was falling for this. They didn't. I think that he actually did send money, but this is their, like, it's the worst Photoshop ever. Like, it's cartoon-esque there. Anyway, that's a recent one. But you know, at the other side of these things, although it's humorous to us, people actually fall for this. They fall in love with these imposters. And while a lot of people actually, the way that they actually found it is like, so if you find a fake profile, what you should do is like take the image. In this case, I dragged it to the desktop, and you can actually go to images.google.com, and you can do what's called a reverse image search. So basically it searches by image, and you can tell really quickly, you know, in this particular case, if you Google that image on me, it actually shows, it links to a bunch of anti-scam pages. So that's how some people eventually found me. But if they do that earlier in the process, then they wouldn't get scammed. A lot of people are finding it after the process. Other scary thing about this, of course, is the future. Like, the future is going to be more and more difficult to determine what is free, what is real, and what is fake. So this is a new, I think this was a Stanford, I forget exactly where it was. These are researchers. You know, you've done swap faces, probably. Some of you have done or seen swap faces. This is kind of swap faces professional, like on steroids, and that's in that way. So this is a guy, the researchers on the right, and basically they've taken a video that they found on the news from CNN of George W. Bush, or not George W.
That's
Sorry.
George W.
Yeah, George W. Okay. So there's George W. And what you can see here is basically you take the researcher on the left, and then George W. on the left as well, and then basically it's almost like the researcher, through his facial expressions, can control this to create like a target actor.
The input video stream is shown on the left. Note that the target actor is re-rendered in a neutral pose. On the right, we can see the final output of our method.
Like, it's super creepy, right? And this is like, just wait till, you know, someone hacks this, Russia decides to put something on Facebook about, I don't know, you know, someone rallying troops, or you know, I don't even want to imagine some of the worst things.
Like, it's fine because Trump says so many ridiculous things.
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
I don't even know.
Yeah, it's creepy, but it's also cool at the same time. But it's super scary because, like, even now, a lot of these scammers, the women who have been affected by these scams, they say that they've actually seen me on Skype. And the deal with it is that you can download a tool, and this is what a lot of the scammers do. And this is one of the scary things to know. And it's very convincing, because we often, you know, it's about seeing is believing, right? So there's a tool called Minicam. So what they have here in this case is, say if you're using Skype or Google Hangouts or something like that, you can download this thing called Minicam. And it's a way of using video to replace your camera. So if you've got downloaded video of me teaching a class, like I'm doing right now. So if you took that video and you happen to see it on YouTube, you can take that in clips, you can put it into Minicam, and you can drop it in here. So you can have multiple clips of me, and then that becomes your Skype camera. So you replace your camera with a bunch of different videos. Then you just talk over these videos. You say your connection's slow. You say there's lag, so the lips aren't matching. And then people are like, wow, this is like, you know, obviously I'm talking to this person. do it. And for the most part, it's a short video that'll only last 30 seconds. Because like I'm in the North Sea doing oil stuff, so you can't expect me to have a reliable connection. So it's this sort of thing that really puts the scam over the top for many of these victims, many who are less literate than others. And that's the scary thing. And there's lots of people who fall for this. People of all ages. In the case of males, what happens in many cases is, and there was one I was just watching today, there was a 34-year-old guy who was who was basically connected and sent basically all of his money, and he ended up committing suicide because he had no more money to give this girl, and he finally found out it was a scam. In some cases, if you watch the Black Mirror, if you watch on Netflix, really kind of a dystopian, weird show, but they show a young kid connecting with someone online where he does something inappropriate online, where he's blackmailed for those photos. That happens a lot. I mean, I've had mothers and people who have come to me and said, this happened to me. I'm a teacher. I met some girl online. We did something inappropriate. Then I realized that they were just recording me on the other end, and they are now blackmailing me to, in one case, it was like, we're gonna give us money or I'll send this video of you doing something inappropriate to your principal, to everyone on your Facebook, and so on. Scary stuff. Like and that's extortion, right? But a lot of this stuff comes from places where these people are above the law, right? So everyone's gonna like burn their internet after this because no one wants to be on the internet anymore. Do you have some comments, sir?
Oh, don't worry.
Okay, we're all good. Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. If you have any comments, sir.
Oh, although John points out that the episodes of Black Mirror are super unsettling.
They are, right?
Like with the Waldo or whatever guy who's like, they use the face software to make him talk.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah. So, but a lot of that stuff, I mean, this is stuff that's happening. I mean, a lot of this stuff is based in reality or sort of an amplification of what the future might look like. It's very dystopian, but very much built on a potential reality or an amplified reality, and that's the scary thing about that show. But it's really interesting. The first one was a bit unsettling more than all the other ones, but the one with the pig and the ball.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, but worthwhile watching. If you can get past the first one, the other ones are better. And I think there's a third season coming up. But at the same time, so don't give up. I mean, I'm glad we have a few minutes to convince you that the internet's not all bad. But we have to kind of get beyond this sort of like slacktivism and so on. There's lots of really great things that your students can do online. I like this particular poster, actions speak louder than like buttons. Even, I think there was a one with Ralph who basically, it was like, I'm helping, where he changed his profile photo of whatever the cause of the week is. And like changing your profile photo to show solidarity might help at a tiny, tiny level, but it's this idea, actions speak louder than like buttons. So lots of good examples of people doing good things. This is a bad thing in this case. So there was a woman by the name of Helen who was a bus monitor taking care of kids on a bus. And these kids like totally shamed her, posted to the YouTube, called her horrible names, and then really harassed her, and it was went viral and so on. But on the nice side of things, someone from Greece, New York, basically decided, hey, I'm going to help out Helen. Let's raise $5,000 for her. And they raised actually closer to $700,000 and basically gave it to her. She started up a foundation for bullying, adult bullying. And it was really kind of a nice story. She ended up with a nice retirement, although, it was a kind of a tragic story. There's, students who take the initiative. This is a student who saw that there was a problem at her school with kids not finding friends to sit with. So if you didn't have a lunch buddy, just a very simple app, like it's a great idea, like a very simple solution, a very simple problem with a very simple solution. And I think that was great. Or there's Martha Payne, who's like one of my favorite internet heroes. She was like a 9-year-old in Scotland who just started a blog. Like this is just like you have basically, but what she did was like, it was a food blog, and she blogged her food in her home, in her school, and basically talked about how crappy it was. And so it was basically kind of bringing awareness to a problem she found locally.
Not your average food blog. Hey, I'm Jillian Pensavalli, and this is Buzz 60. A 9-year-old girl from Scotland has started her own food blog called Never Seconds. She showcases just how disappointing her school lunches are, and she's gone viral. Check this out. Every day, Martha Payne takes a photo of her lunch, and then she adds her own little commentary. She's not always happy about it, saying, I'm a growing kid, and I need to concentrate all afternoon, and I can't do it on one croquette. Do any of you think you could? No, Martha. I don't even know what a croquette is. From the all-right pizza to macaroni and cheese, that's always good. Martha gives you every detail of her meal. She ranks it on the foodometer, then tells you how many mouthfuls it was, gives it a health rating, and tells you how much it cost her. And she counts how many pieces of hair she's found, which is a number I really hope always stays at 0. She's posted submissions from other students across the globe, and food revolutionary Jamie Oliver has even tweeted his support. Martha, you're awesome! You know, this almost makes me wish that I could go back in time and start having cafeteria food every day, just so that I could be a part of this. Not really. But 60, now you know, pass it on.
So what's cool about this is, like, she got a worldwide following. You think this would be great. What was crazy about this is, like, her school district actually banned her blog. They told her, you can't blog anymore because you're giving us a bad name, which is like basically banning a 9-year-old from speaking and writing after school. So she wrote her last blog, and she's basically saying, like, how she can't blog anymore. And then, like, there was 2,400 comments on her blog, and they basically, like, pushed back at the school. And so the school finally caved in and said, okay, you're right. We have to fix our food practices. We're gonna create a better food summit. And it was really great that this 9-year-old girl had a greater voice than her entire district, although they even tried to ban her. And she also, like, raised, like, you know, a couple $100,000 US for a Rwandan charity. So not only was she, you know, fixing her local problems, but she was also supporting other things as well. But there's just everyday stuff. Like, this was on Reddit one day. I was just reading an article, and Reddit can make me cry sometimes. Sometimes for the bad reasons, sometimes it's good. And this is one of those days that was really good. So this guy posts on Reddit, helped me fix my picture of my mom. His mom recently passed away from cancer. And so this is a photo, and basically the only thing wrong with it was that she had tubing under her nose. And this guy was like, hey, can you fix this picture? It's perfect except for the tubing. And so people did and left nice comments. So basically, you know, my best attempt, sorry for your loss. You know, I color corrected the skin tones a bit as well. So these are comments that came with it. This guy, you know, did a 4x6 crop. So they each kind of improved the photo. This dude here, like, fixed the chair. If you look back here, if you notice the chair, there's like a red chunk of vinyl that's coming out. And this guy, like, you know, he saw this and saw that this was a problem, and he decided to fix the chair, which I think is awesome. Like, that guy, you know, and it's even more polished. Like, it's a beautiful chair now. So, like, everyone's helping, you know, apologizing for the late help. But it was one of these moments that it could go really, really bad. And I've seen some bad Photoshop requests on Reddit. But it's one of these moments that people, the compassion shone through, and the bad things were downvoted, and the good things were just sort of upvoted. And that's the way democracy should work, and that's the way society should work. So as a conclusion, just to finish up, because we're right at the end, man. One of my favorite tools out there, you know, killer tool is, you know, we systematically overestimate the value of access to information and underestimate the value of access to each other. This is from Clay Shirky. And, you know, when my kids used to connect from Humboldt to Regina with my dad, that was really a magic thing. And, like, you can't replace that. You can't replace the human connections that technology gives. That's one of the most wonderful things you can possibly do. And I think we have to look at not just what we can download from the web, but, like, how can we connect to people in meaningful ways? And to me, that's more important. Sure, we've got tons of content, but how are we connecting and building really deep relationships with our kids to others? And I think that's where we start to see humanity shine through. And one of my favorite examples of this is this project in Brazil, where basically they were helping these Brazilian students learn English. And to do it, they actually connected with a U.S. nursing home. And it's really a beautiful project. So watch this real quick and we can end.
We created a tool that connects our students with seniors in the USA living in retirement homes.
Hello, hello.
Melissa.
Hi, Geek. Can you hear me? Yes, I can. Can you hear me? How are you today? I'm good. How are you?
It's the first time that I'm talking with someone from another country.
I'm very excited to be doing this.
I look like I'm only 25, but I'm 88.
Do you have sisters and brothers?
No, I'm one child.
Only one. Oh, you poor fella.
I'm living with my old brother. He has 23 years.
Do you know, instead of saying he has 23 years, you could say he is 23 years old.
I tried to go to Lollapalooza that we have next week, I think, in Brazil, but my mom didn't let me.
You got a good mom.
Good morning, dear Julia. Good morning to you.
This is your dad? That's me and my wife when we were young. Oh, you were good looking when you were young. And you're still good looking.
My first destiny is United States, of course, because I wanted to put better my English.
Well, you do very well, I must say.
Are you planning someday to go to Brazil? Well, I would like to. You can stay in my house if you want.
If you could just dream and have whatever you want, what do you think you would like to be doing?
I see myself in a big family with a beautiful wife. I want to thank you for this change of experience, You are incredible.
Obrigado.
You are my new granddaughter.
And I love you.
I love you too.
And if you were here, I would give you a big hug.
Oh, yeah, let's hug.
Oh. Bye. Bye.
So I love this. The motto for the project is more than better students, better people. And, if you can work towards that as students, it's not just how to learn. I've seen that video 100 times and I tear up every time. It's such a beautiful, and it's so well edited and it's just one of those, awesome things. And for me, it's about this, technology and pedagogy are going to be really important for you, but don't forget the humanity part. Don't forget how we can make the world a better place, how we can connect our students in deeper ways. And I think that's a big thing. I mean, if you remember one thing from this presentation, how do we actually deepen this? I showed you all the horrible negative things that technology can do, but you have to keep bringing it back to what can you do to make this a better place? What can you do to make it better for students? And really, that's all we ever tried in schools that has been successful. So that's it. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm easy to find on Twitter. Feel free to tweet me anytime. You can email me. You can just, hit Katya and say, hey, I want to talk to Alec or something. I don't know, whatever you want to do. I don't know. I mean, hit you in a technology sense. Okay. Ping, I don't know.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Alec, for coming to visit us.
No problem. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate the time here, and it was great to see your smiles, and hopefully we can connect in different ways in the future. Take care.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording, and then, yeah.